Hi, so here is the answer key, video key for SLT 5 and Algebra 2. In our first section, we will be graphing piecewise functions. And so I'm going to first start by just getting my walls on the graph. So first I'm going to graph the wall -6 to -2. So in yellow, here comes the wall -6 and -2. And then in a different color, I'm going to get my walls highlighted of -2, so you're going to see a little overlap to 1. All right, and then in a final color, you're going to see greater than 2. So greater than 2 means I'll be going to the right. All right, let's start. Let's start with -3/2 x minus 2. So I'm going to put that in orange. And just a reminder that you have a y-intercept of -2. Your slope is -3/2, which means this line is going down. So I'm going to begin at -2 on the y-axis. So you're going to see me putting a point. That point won't be needed. I'll be erasing it later. But from there, I'm going to rise 3 and go to the left 2. And that's the first point I actually want because that's on my yellow highlighted wall. All right, so I'm going to keep going up 3 and over 2, up 3 and over 2, and then I'll connect the yellow dots that I actually need, and I'll only connect the ones that are in between the yellow wall. Now on the -6 wall, I will be making a very noticeable closed circle because this inequality is underlined, and on the -2 wall, I'm going to turn it into an open circle. All right, so let's get rid of this little one that we didn't need there. Okay. All right, so now I'm going to switch to blue and for the middle one. And my y-intercept is 3 and my slope is 5/1. It's positive, so it will be going uphill. So on the y-axis, again, I'm going to begin at 3 and I'm going to rise 5 and go over 1. And I'm going to run out of room, but I could get that other one. It might be about there. And then I'll go down 5/1, down 5 again over 1 until I'm right in between the blue and that green wall. All right, very steep one here, okay? With the -2 wall, it is an open circle, and with the 1 wall, it is a very noticeable closed circle. And then finally, the last one. So this time, you do not have a slope. There is no slope. It's just going flat across. You only have a y-intercept of 1. So I'll be drawing a horizontal line where y is 1, but I'm only going to do it on the right side of my green wall. Now this has an arrow because there is no wall stopping it from continuing right. And based on this inequality that I'm circling, this will be a closed circle. All right, let's go to where we're going to write them. So the bell will ring, just a heads up, and I'm going to start with this one right here. I'm going to get the equation. And if I kept going, I would see that my y-intercept is going to be a -3. And this is, let's switch that, no slope because it's flat. So I'm going to be at -3. But then I'm going to erase this now. I want you to realize that it stops right here, right at this wall of -3 as well. And it's to the left. So when I draw my domain restrictions, all the x's will be to the left or smaller than -3. And if you can see here, that was an open circle right there, so I will not underline my inequality. All right, on the next one, I should see that my y-intercept is a 3 right there. And then my slope, I want to find one easy point and another easy point. So here's an easy point, and the blue y-intercept is another easy point, and I'm rising 2 and running 3. Rise and run. So my slope is 2/3. It is going uphill, so I'm going to leave it positive. So I'm going to have mx plus b. And this time, I'm going to do a little erasing now. It is in between this wall of -3 and 2. So I'm going to write that accordingly. So in between -3, and 2. There's that little colon if you want to put that semicolon. And the -3 wall is closed circle, so I'm going to underline that part of the inequality. And the 2 wall is an open circle, so I won't underline. All right, last one. So for the very last one, I can't see the y-intercept yet. So what I'm going to do is figure out the slope. So I'm going to find some easy points and establish that rise over run. So I'm rising 3, running 1. Rising 3, running 1. So my m is 3 over 1, but the line is going downhill left to right, so I'm going to make it negative. And if I keep that going, rising 3, running 1, rising 3, running 1, you will see that that y-intercept is 7. So now I can write -3. You can put the over 1 if you want, x plus b. And I'm going to do a little erasing now. And this is on this wall of 2, and it's to the right. So all the x's are to the right of 2, and it is a closed circle here, so I'm going to underline. All right, I might have to pause here because I have a feeling my door is going to be knocking. Just a reminder, when we evaluate, F goes with the graph and G's go with the equations. So let's go ahead and get started. So the number in the parentheses means I'm giving you X, so I will tell you to go right 5. So I'm going to do that real quick. Oh, shoot. Hold on one second. All right, so from my center, I'm going to go right 5. And once you're done going right, you need to go up. We land somewhere and down, but there's nothing down. And how many did we go up? We went up to 4. All right, let's try another one. So this time I'm giving you X is 1, so you need to go right 1. And as it turns out, once you go right 1, you're actually right where you need to be. So you don't have to go up or down, so it's 0. But if you go down, you have an open circle, which means that one actually has a no solution. So that one's just 0. And on the last one, since the number's not in parentheses, I'm giving you y, so I'm telling you to go up 2. Once you go up, you should go left, and you land on -10. And you should also go right, and that's where you land on 3. Okay? All right, the bottom ones with G. So with G, you're going to have to figure out where the x's I give you go. So -3. All right, so let's take a look. So where does -3 fit? So let's mark these up. So we got our triangle, our square, and our circle. So -3 is actually going to fit in the square one, because -3, if I put it here, that is in between -6 and 1. And if you go to your picture up here, there's -6, and there's 1, and there's -3 right in between. So I'm going to use the equation -x plus 2 and put in a -3. So first, here goes the negative of -x, and then in for x is going to go -3 plus 2. Well, what's going to happen here is when you take the negative of a negative, it actually becomes a positive. So you'll have 3 plus 2, which gives you 5. All right, let's try the next one. So where does -6 fit? -6 is going to fit in this one because this says less than or equal to -6. So I'm going to take -6 and put it into 2/3. Here goes my -6 plus 4. What's happening here in my fraction is I'm just going to multiply across. So I'm going to get -12. Multiply across with my denominators 3, and that all becomes -4, and then I can add that with the 4 that's already there to get 0. And then in the last one, where does 2 go? Well, 2 is also going to fit in the square one, because again, there's -6, and whoops, it's not going to fit there. So where's 2 going to fit? 2 is actually not going to fit anywhere, because 2 does not fit in between -6 and 1 because it's here, right? And 2 for the bottom one is not bigger than 3. So this one actually has no solution. All right, let's move into our absolute value. So here we are graphing. So in the graphing, what we want to do is we want to come up with our table of values. So our table of values is always going to have these x values regardless. And what we're going to do is find the y values, because we're going to take all of these x's take the absolute value of them to get the y. And whenever you take the absolute value of something, it turns any number positive if it wasn't already positive. So these stay the same digit, but now they're all positive. So I'm going to do that for the one on the right. Now let's talk about the transformations. This 2 is going to be a stretch, which I will be applying to make my new y's. The 3 is in the house, so I should do the opposite and go left 3. So let's go ahead and change these y's. So 2 times 2, or 2 doubled, is 4. 1 doubled is 2. 0 doubled is 0. And then these numbers just repeat. And if you remember, you don't need these anymore. You're going to take these points and you're going to go left 3. So here's negative 2, 4. I don't know if you can see that, but I'm going to go left 3 and it ends up right there. I'm at negative 1, 2 now, and I'm going to go left 3. Whoops, I think I'm off on one of them. Hold on. Negative 2, 4, go 1, 2, 3. Yep, I was off a little bit. And negative 1, 2, I'm going to go left 3. And then 0, 0, I'm going left 3. And I'm just taking all the points and moving them left 3 so I get my V shape. All right, now on this one, I have my X's and Y's, but this time I have a flip. So I'm going to take all these Y's and I'm going to flip them. So what was positive, everything becomes negative. Not the X's, the Y's are changing. And then this minus 3 says I'll go right 3, and the 4 says I'll go up 4. So right now I'm at negative 2, negative 2. And I'm going to go right 3 and up 4 and land right there. And then now I'm at negative 1, and I'm going to go right 3, up 4, and up here. And I'm going to do the same with 0, 0, and all the other points. And when you're done, you will have a flipped, whoops, that's not connecting very well, upside down V. All right, few more. Let's go through these absolute value ones. So remember, absolute value, you want to isolate the bars. So I'm going to subtract the 1 first. And then I'm going to divide that 2, which turns 12 into 6. And then I'm going to make my 2 equations. One, x minus 3 equals 6, and the other one will be x minus 3 equals negative 6. In either problem, I'm going to add 3. So when I add 3 on the left one, I get 9. And when I add 3 here, I get negative 3. And those are your 2 answers. And in this one, what you should see this is as a negative 1 with those absolute value bars. So I'm going to have to move that negative 1 by dividing. And once I divide, I get a negative 13. And this is going to be a no solution because you cannot take the absolute value of something and get a negative number. Absolute value always turns a number positive. So that one is a no solution. All right, let's walk through the next 2. So I'm going to isolate the bar. So I'm going to divide that 2, which gives me 5. And now I'm going to make my 2 equations, x with 4 and 5, and x plus 4 with a negative 5. I'm going to subtract 4 on the left to get 1, and I'm going to subtract 4 on the other one to get negative 9. And because there is an alligator, I'm going to test where the alligator is happy. So here goes my testing area, negative 9 and 1. And I'm going to, if you want something a little easier to work with, I'm actually going to test with the simpler version and put the inequality back in there. And the number I'm going to test is negative 4, which is right, again, in between. And if I change this x to a negative 4, then once I add the numbers in the bars, I get 0. And then the absolute value of 0 is 0. And my alligator is not happy. So it doesn't want to be in between those two numbers. It wants to be on the right of them and on the left of them. And now I'm going to have to write my equation. So I'm going to switch to the equation. I'm going to put it in kind of a red color. So this arrow on the right means infinity. So for this one, it's from 1 to infinity. And then for the shading on the left arrow means negative infinity. So when I write this one, I'm going to write it over here. It's from negative infinity to negative 9. Infinity always gets parentheses. And since my inequality is not underlined, I will not include 1 and negative 9. And I'll show that by doing parentheses. All right, let's try the next one. So here I'm going to isolate the bars. I'm going to add the 9, which is going to give me a 16. And now I'm going to make my two equations, one with 16, one with negative 16, and I'm going to subtract the 2 to get 14 and subtract the 2 to get negative 18. So again, I'm going to see where is this alligator happy. So here's negative 18, here's 14, and I'm going to test this much simpler version here and bring that inequality back in right there. So, and it's underlined, don't want to forget that. So the number that would turn my bars into 0 is a negative 2, which happens to be right in between. So what I'm going to do is put a negative 2 in where that x is, and when I'm done, I get 0, and the absolute value of 0 is 0, and this the alligator likes. He is happy, so he wants to be in between these two numbers. And so when I'm ready to write my inequality, it's from negative, my interval notation is from negative 18 to 14. This inequality is underlined, so I will bracket these. Okay, so just pointing out one final thing. These in yellow highlighter are my answers for the one on the left, and that's my answer for the one on the right. All right, we have one more. So this is about writing a linear equation, some form of y equals mx plus b. So Leslie won $8,000 at bingo and deposited the money in a savings account. Every week she spends $225 on something special for herself. So we're going to write a linear function. This is part A that shows how much money Leslie has in her checking account at any given time. And B of t is going to represent the current balance, and t is going to represent the number of weeks. So normally where we have, that doesn't show up very well, y equals mx plus b, we're going to be changing it to b of t equals mt plus b, if you want to know that. All right, so what I like to do is actually start with b, my beginning amount. So here goes the b of t, and Leslie started with the $8,000 that she won, and then she's spending, so she's going to lose $225 every week, and that's what the T means. So how long will it take Leslie to spend half of her winnings? Well, she has $8,000 and she spends half of it. That means her current balance, her B of T, is $4,000. And from here you can just solve for X, or T. So I'm going to isolate, I'm going to subtract the 8,000 over, and then I'm going to take that negative 4,000 and I'm going to divide it by my negative 225, and when we're done, T is 17.77, and do not round this to 18. It's somewhere in that 17th week that she is down to half her winnings. So how much money will she have after 8 weeks? Well, I'm just going to take the 8 and put it into T. So I'll figure out the balance once I do 8,000 minus 225 times 8. So I'm just typing that 8,000 minus 225 times 8 into my calculator. And when I'm done with that, I get $6,200. And that is SLT number 5.